Blog Talk Radio.
You're listening live to another edition of ATL Prime Sports. Todd Corder here in Atlanta, JJ on the other side of Atlanta, Mark Mancini in Los Angeles, and our producer Wayne in Memphis, Tennessee. We have a special guest today, Evie Van Pelt, editor of the Rebel Walk. You can catch Evie on Twitter at Ole Miss Evie. And I cannot wait to talk college football with Evie. I cannot wait to talk Ole Miss, SEC Media Days. We'll talk a little bit about Texas, Oklahoma. We'll talk about conference expansion there, a little bit NIL, and Bobby Bowden news. That will be the show today. Please listen in. You can please listen and subscribe to our show. Go to the YouTube channel. You can catch it. We'll retweet the show for you out on Twitter. You can catch us all on ATL Prime Sports, myself at Corder Todd, JJ at JJ Get You One, Mark at Mancini Sports, and Wayne at RWY Jr. Evie, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be back on with you guys.
Yes, we had David Walker on Monday talking SEC quarterbacks and all the other stuff with college football and all the big news and hoopla, and of course now we've got you on with SEC Media Days, and I'm just going to come out with it. Tell me a little bit about Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin and the crew on SEC Media Day. What was it like?
Oh, it was fun. It was our first SEC Media Days with Lane Kiffin as head coach. And I tell you what, it was the second time Matt Corral had represented Ole Miss at SEC Media Days. The first time was back in 2019. And I was struck personally just by the maturity level of Matt. Not that he was immature before, but he just, honestly, he seemed more self-assured, and he seems like he's grown to me too. I will say that. He looked a little bigger to me, but it was really great. We got to have a little breakout session where just the local Ole Miss media, 4 or 5 of us, got to have a little private session with Lane and also with Matt Corral and with our defensive back Jalen Jones. So that was really nice to kind of get a chance to talk to them one-on-one without being in the big main media room. But it was great. We had a great time, and I think, just like everybody else, we're all looking forward to getting back to some football.
What was the details of the interview? Tell us about the interview with Coach and the quarterback and et cetera.
Okay. Well, with Kiffin, he talked a little bit about everything, but he did talk about using John Rice Plumlee as a receiver. He wouldn't talk about the specifics of the conversation he had with John Rice, just that they had sat down and had a conversation about it, and we're on, Plumlee's on board to be a receiver now, so that's pretty cool. He said that working on, of course, they would love to have, vaccination. COVID vaccination is a big topic of conversation, and he would not give specifics of the percentage. I think I heard Nick Saban say over 90% of his team had been vaccinated. Kiffin wouldn't give specific numbers, but said, that they are having those conversations with the kids, but you have to be very careful because, you know how it is. I mean, you can't force people to do medical things. But with Commissioner Sankey coming out and saying that this season, if you have to forfeit, if you can't play due to COVID, there's no postponement. It's a forfeit. It's a loss. So Corral was a little more to the point when we talked to him. He said, he'd been vaccinated, but he said, I'm talking to all my players, all my teammates. We're a very close team, and, we can have these conversations. I respect that some people may have family, or beliefs that they don't want to get vaccinated. He said, but at the end of the day, the bottom line, do you want to lose a game because you weren't vaccinated? And so I thought that was kind of interesting. He was a little more willing to talk about it than Coach Kiffin was. Corral also commented, interestingly, he said that right now this team has worked so hard all throughout the spring and off season, on their own, since they can't work with the coaches in the off season. But he said, this is, in my entire life, this is the closest group, the closest team I've ever been on. He goes, I just thought I knew what a team was last year, but it was nothing compared to this. So I think that's going to be interesting, because sometimes you just have to have a little bit of those intangible things go your way.
You're listening to ATL Prime Sports with Ole Miss Evie, the editor of the Rebel Walk, Evie Van Pelt here. We're talking about Coach Lane Kiffin. He attributed a lot of last year's defensive miscues on the lack of spring football practice. The Rebs returned 9 on defense. Evie, do you see the Rebels defense doing a 180 this year?
I tell you what, I was asked that question a lot this week. I think my thoughts on that, when he says no spring practice, I realize nobody had spring practices last year, but his point is, this was a first-year staff coming in, brand new offensive scheme, brand new defensive scheme. They didn't even know a lot of the players' names. They couldn't actually do anything with them, I don't think, until that August. So there were a lot of things that were working against them just because they were new to the team. So that being said, having them this spring and having them already know the system, but then just be able to work on it, hit the ground running in the spring, was really important. And I think that he really recruited this last year, this 2021 class, to the needs of that defense. I feel like the defensive line really needed some help. They hardly got any push up there all year long last year. They were smaller, way smaller than the other lines in the league. And he added a bunch of size. He added I think he recruited the number 1 and number 2 JUCO defensive linemen in the nation, Jamon Gordon and Isaiah Aiton. I hope they'll be able to get right in and contribute. He got a great kid, Tywan Malone, from Bergen Catholic in New Jersey, big, strong kid who's going to also play baseball. Anyway, so I think that they addressed some areas of need there in the defensive secondary, same thing. So I think that there was a definite attention to that defense in terms of bringing in some pieces that they really, really needed. So I think combining that, having more players, the defensive back Jalen Jones talked about it at media days, that now they've got much more of a rotation of people. They were so limited last year. Nobody really got a break ever. And Kiffin even mentioned, he said last year we had guys that still, didn't even know where to line up at times. So I just feel like there's a comfort level now, having had a spring under their belt, and I think that it will be better. Are they, how far are they going to move up? I don't know, but with the offense that they're going to have, I really feel like if they can be serviceable, if they can be middle of the road, if they can move up from 14th to 10th, or I think that they'll do
just
better than
jump.
that. But right, just a jump, I think, could actually make a legit difference in the outcome of at least, a couple of games that were losses last year.
I agree with you. I think the star linebacker, Otis Reese, the sophomore, transfer from my guys, the Dogs, UGA in Athens, made a pretty immediate impact at the end of last season. So I think that'll help out. He can drop back into cover. He can provide pressure, especially in that tough SEC West. So I'm with you. I think a little bit of a jump is a huge increase out there, especially with that offense.
I think so, too. And you mentioned Otis. He came in, I think he got to play just the final 3 games of the season and made an immediate impact.
2 or 3, correct.
And, and I think that, he's having him and having him now. He was participating, all throughout the season in practice and everything, but still it just isn't the same as real game action. And I know they're really, really excited about having him this coming season.
Evie, everybody talks about Ole Miss. When are they going to break the title drought? Last SEC conference, or last title was in 1963. Excuse me. Last time they didn't go bowling was back in 2019. So When you look at the schedule, I mean, we all know about the game on October 2nd at Alabama. You've got Louisville to start the season here in Atlanta, so we hope to actually see you in person for that. They go to Auburn, and they got LSU. Well, they got at Tennessee, LSU, and Auburn back-to-back, and then they come down the line and play Texas A&M at home and at Mississippi State. Two-part question. How many games can this team win, and are they in contention in the West? Can they finish as high as second?
It's funny. I mean, I was asked this at Media Days, and I mean, 8 wins, I think, minimum. I would be surprised if they were under 8 wins. I think there's a ceiling. I think I could see them winning 10 games. I mean, I think you need a little luck here and there. You need to stay healthy, have a few breaks maybe go your way. But I absolutely can see that when I look at the schedule. And in terms of the SEC West, I think that they've got LSU in Oxford, and they've got A&M in Oxford this year. So I think that's kind of a big point. I know they were picked to finish 4th in the SEC West by the media members at Media Days. That came out today. And so that's interesting. I think, Alabama, A&M, LSU, and Ole Miss. And, again, Ole Miss has A&M and LSU at home. So I'm not going to, I think, again, much like last year, I think like Ole Miss when they played Alabama last year, their offense can keep them in any game. And I don't expect, I know Elijah Moore and Kenny Yeboah have gone on to the NFL, but I really don't expect with Lane Kiffin as the coach and Jeff Lebby as the offensive coordinator and Matt Corral, who incidentally today, was voted preseason All-SEC first-team quarterback. I don't really believe we're going to see much of a drop-off in that offense. So, 8 to 10 wins would not surprise me.
You're listening to ATL Prime Sports right here on blogtalkradio.com/Mancini Sports. I got one more Ole Miss question. I'll make it a two-parter. Go as quick as possible, and we'll get on into the other aspects of SEC Media Days and everything. I want to touch on Arch Manning coming in. I almost called him Archie there. Don't want to do that. Arch Manning, nephew of Eli and Peyton, son of Cooper. I think he's got a pretty good chance to land in Oxford. I want your thoughts on that. And then I want your thoughts on the Egg Bowl being moved back to Thanksgiving Day, because I think that's huge.
Yeah, it really is. And I think in terms about the Egg Bowl, I think it's funny. I mean, Ole Miss and Mississippi State fans seem to be split kind of half and half. I mean, some love it and some can't stand it, and some don't like it because it messes up their Thanksgiving because half their family, are State fans and half their family are Ole Miss fans. That's much of the state, it seems to be. So it can make for some, disruptive holiday time, I think. I graduated from A&M, so I was used to, and I guess we'll get into this in a little bit, but I was used to always A&M and Texas on Thanksgiving, so I'm kind of used to that, big rivalry game on Thanksgiving. So I think that's going to be kind of fun. I mean, people, will complain, but they will definitely be there in the stands to see that, I'm sure. And as for Arch, he has got an unofficial visit to Ole Miss coming up on the 26th. And, I mean, again, this is a kid who has been to and been around Ole Miss all his life. So, in terms of the unofficial, yes, it's great. But, I mean, it's not like he's not been there a whole bunch of times. I know that a lot of people think it's between Clemson and Texas. Of course, how do things change with this whole SEC expansion? Does that, I don't know. I don't know if that makes him more likely to want to go to Texas or not, but I definitely think Ole Miss will be in it, and I think they'll be in it, late when it matters. I also expect Arch to commit. Whenever he does commit, I think that'll be that. I think he'll commit, he'll shut down. You won't see any, wishy-washy anything. That'll be that. And I think he'll help recruit for whichever school is fortunate enough to get him.
I agree with you, Evie. I 100% agree with you. I think Ole Miss will be there till the very end, and I'll pass it on to the next person. Thanks, Evie.
Thank you.
Yeah, Evie, I wanted to talk about the expansion in college football. There's rumors that, Texas and Oklahoma could come into the SEC. When you look at this, and if it does come to fruition, it almost reminds me of, in the NBA and stuff where, guys build super teams. And if that comes into play, that would be one hell of a conference. And, when you look at the Big Ten or, the Pac-12, they'd be looking up at one heck of a conference, and the recruits would be pretty much at their beck and call in the SEC. Any thought to that, and any thought to the other conferences? It'd be probably much looking up at the SEC.
Oh, I absolutely agree with you. And from everything I'm hearing, I think this is a when, not if. I think that it's going to happen. I think that the amount of money that we're talking in terms of what each team in the SEC, the 14 that are there now, the increase in money, I've heard, $30 million a year potentially if TU and OU join the conference, just in TV revenues, shared revenues. I think that's a mighty big, in this day and age, that's money talks. That's a big factor there. I think it's going to happen. I think it'll be very, very, very interesting. I don't know what will happen with the Big 12. I've seen, talks of basically, in effect, either if they couldn't add a few teams, basically splitting up. Some of the teams going to the Pac-12, some going, elsewhere. So I think it's really going to be interesting. I think that we'll probably have a little more clarity on that here even within the next few days, but I absolutely think that it's going to happen.
Evie, this conference expansion is, this just kind of came out of nowhere. Supposedly talks have been going on for 6+ months. It seems like to me it just means more in the SEC. They were the first ones to do a conference championship game. They were the first ones to talk about a playoff. They were first ones to talk about playing during COVID. They're the ones that made it happen during COVID. They played a full season during COVID. Now the ACC and the other leagues, they've made inquiries through back channels to Oklahoma and Texas. Even though these schools are still expected to join the SEC, but to go through with the process next week, the back channel communication to the SEC, like I said, 6 months to a year this has been going on. The SEC has beat everyone to the punch. There are some problems with the Oklahoma State legislator. Oklahoma State's supposed to go where Oklahoma is, but now that, there's not as much power in the state legislature they used to have, other school, Texas A&M doesn't want Texas to go to the SEC, and my, the politics, the jumbling we're getting here, we're heading towards super conferences, and the SEC again beat everybody to the punch. It's going to be at the possibilities are mind-boggling, and there could only be 4 winners when this is done. The SEC will be one of them. The Big Ten will probably be another. Who knows, man, Ohio State might want to leave the Big Ten after seeing all this because they're the king of that conference. The Pac-12 and the ACC. The Big 12 could be down to the AAC or another level. People are going to start purging them. We might have, 4 super conferences with 16 teams or 18 teams apiece. Right. Your thoughts on all that?
That's exactly what I was going to say. I think that that's ultimately where we'll be headed, the 4 super conferences. I don't know how long it'll take for all that to shake out. But I did actually hear, though, one SEC expert said off the record that he wouldn't be surprised if the SEC didn't stop at 16 teams. He wouldn't be surprised if it was 18 teams at some point, not right now. So, I don't know. I mean, who knows? It's like the wild, wild west out there right now. I do know A&M, the day that broke at SEC Media Days, A&M was actually there, and the athletic director, Ross Bjork, who was the former athletic director at Ole Miss, indicated that, they would absolutely be opposed to that, and they don't want, two teams from the same state in the SEC, which to that, Ole Miss and Mississippi State, Texas and Vandy, Alabama, Auburn, say hello. Can
you say politics and all this? I mean, this is gonna be so political. It boggles my mind. And speaking of something that boggles my mind, everybody loves to bash the NCAA leadership, and I'm all for bashing them. It's too easy. But you know what? Where else can you see a nonprofit lose 50+% of its revenue, but still give its millionaire leaders like Mark Emmert sizable pay raises? You know what that is?
Oh, yes.
That's like watching looters in San Francisco have a free-for-all at all the pharmacy stores and department stores and just take everything in a garbage bag and in a bicycle and just go ahead and go, you know what? We're going to take everything out before the store goes out of business.
Right. You're absolutely right. And I think in answer to your question, yes, I think it's all political, all politics. I think that we probably are only seeing the beginning of all the politics that are going to be taking place. And I read something earlier today that a lawmaker out of Waco, where Baylor is, wanted to, initiate some sort of legislation or something, stopping Texas from being able to leave, and why doesn't the governor do this, and blah blah. And I just think that at the end of the day, PU and OU are leaving. I don't have any doubt about that at all. And so it's just going to be really interesting to see.
It reminds me of Indianapolis. It reminds me of the Cleveland Browns going to Baltimore in the middle of the night with a snowstorm with a truck. Or it reminds me of the Baltimore Colts going to Indianapolis with a truck in the middle of the night. What schools, these schools from Oklahoma and Texas, their truck is going to the SEC, and Greg Sankey is going to be the most powerful man in college sports, Evie. It's looking that way to me.
He sure will. And on a little side note, though, I'm trying to figure out how Texas is going to handle the old sensitivity they have about the horns down symbol when they get to the SEC, because what do you think they're going to be greeted with in every single stadium that they visit? I think that's going to be kind of funny. They're going to be coming, used to being the big dogs, and I think that it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the SEC. But man, talk about a super conference that's just going to be crazy.
It just means more.
Just means more. And I don't know whether we're going to ultimately see whether we're going to see 2 8-team divisions or we're going to see 4 14 pods that, some folks are talking about. I'm not, who knows what it's going to actually look like, but I think it's coming.
You know what I think it is? Hang on, JJ. You know what I think it is? They're going to stick 8 teams in each thing. They're going to take Oklahoma and Texas, put them in the West, turn around and take Alabama and Auburn and stick them in the East. And you want to talk about a showdown at the OK Corral.
Right. I think that that's absolutely possible. I saw that the one of the SEC network shows proposed realigning these 4-team pods where it'd be Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, South Carolina, Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, Vandy, LSU, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, A&M, and then Arkansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Texas. So, I could see that happening too. But I think if there's two 8-team divisions, I definitely could see that with Alabama and Auburn.
You're listening to ATL Prime Sports with Evie Van Pelt, the editor of the Rebel Walk. speaking of Texas, Oklahoma coming in the SEC, that's going to mean money, money, money for all these players and the new name, image, likeness deals. Where do you see name, image, likeness, and college football in 10 years, Evie?
Gosh, what a good question. I don't know. I can't even see what it's going to look like in 1 year. I mean, I'm kind of like Lane Kiffin, who was just blown.
I can't see what it's going to look like in 1 month.
And you're right, because we're already talking about high schooler players trying to capitalize on this. Looks like we've already had a high school basketball player do that. So I'm with you. That's why I asked you. I have no clue. This could be really, really good or really, really detrimental to college football. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, I will say that it kind of goes back to the question before of the, like about what Todd said about the looters and the robbers. I mean, I don't mean to liken the conference and the administrators and the schools being like that, but I mean, they have made a ton of money on the backs of a lot of these kids. And I will tell you that Matt Corral stood up at the main podium at SEC Media Days and said, when asked about name, image, likeness, basically what he was asked is, what do you think about Alabama quarterback Bryce Young already having made apparently $1 million, close to $1 million, And, I mean, I think Corral was a little, like Kiffin, a little, shocked at that. But what he said is, I didn't have the most money growing up, but I mean, we had enough money. And he said, but I play with kids, and I played with kids all my life who the name, image, and likeness money will mean a great deal to them and their families. And it will mean being able to take care of their families. And, I'm all for that. I was at Media Days back in, I want to say maybe 2014 when Bo Wallace was the quarterback at Ole Miss. And I don't know, somehow something came up about this. And he commented that, he knew players on the team who at times went without food. I mean, their parents couldn't afford to send them money. And he said, I'm fortunate enough mine can when I need it. And so, I think that definitely something needed to be done. And I think that it's great for kids to have the authority over their name, image, and likeness. So I'm all for that. I just, again, when so a kid already making $1 million. And can you imagine Arch Manning? I mean, I will tell you, if Arch Manning did attend, well, wherever he goes, but if he did attend Ole Miss, I can't imagine at the end how much money in name, image, and likeness he would make being a Manning at OleSs.
Oh, my gosh. You know what? He won't even have to play pro football, Evie.
I know.
I mean, he really won't have to play pro football. And, this is – I'll finish up with the NAL, then I got one more question because we got about 2 minutes and 40 seconds left in the show. Okay. The NIL, to me, is going to be the haves and the have-nots. I'm hoping that the people in women's sports, that they're able to get some money out of it. The softball players especially, that's a sport that has really grown women's basketball. I'm hoping it trickles down to the other sports. That's the uncertainty it is for me. My last question, about 2 minutes left. Bobby Bowden, he's diagnosed with a terminal illness, cancer. Your thoughts? I think he's one of the greatest coaches in college football history, and it pains my heart. He's one of the nicest people that you'll meet in college sports, and down to earth. And it's just an absolute shame that he said it so gracefully. He said my time will be done here. I'll go on and do better things in another life. And I thought, how poetic, how classy.
I agree. So sad. I believe Terry Bowden said Thursday it's pancreatic cancer, and just a sad thing. And you're right. I mean, he just said, I've always tried to serve God's purpose for my life on and off the field, and I'm prepared for what is to come. And what an amazing guy. Even more so off the field than on the field, and we all know on the field he was tremendous. So just truly, truly sad. I hope he knows how much he is loved and adored in the football community and outside the football community, and I rather suspect that he does.
Well, Evie, thanks so much, and best of luck to you, and hopefully I will see you for the Louisville Ole Miss game Labor Day weekend. It'll be the first quote-unquote Monday Night Football telecast of the season. Hopefully I'll see you and David down in Atlanta, and hopefully we'll all be able to enjoy the game together.
Oh, I hope so. I'm really looking forward to it. September 6th, 7 o'clock, I believe, on ESPN, and I hope we are all there and have a great time. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, we're out of time. For JJ, for Mark in Los Angeles, for JJ on the other side of the ATL, for Wayne in Memphis, for Evie in Texas, and for Todd Corder here in Atlanta, thank you for listening, and have a great week, everybody. We'll talk to you next week on ATL Prime Sports Live at 1 Eastern.